And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I am here with Toph Sheldon. Toph, man, thanks for spending some time with me today.
Michael, thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
You are welcome. So, Toph, this is going to be a fun conversation. Toph is a client of ours. He is the Amazon best-selling author of Escaping the Sand Trap, and we'll go into that. He helps business owners who are stuck in tax issues. He helps get you out. He's also a professional golfer, and he's just an all-around great guy and family man. And I'm just super excited to talk because I think, Toph, this is a topic that not a lot of people talk about, and people are scared to death of the IRS. So, as we dive into this conversation in your book, tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Full disclaimer, professional golfer more was than am. So I'll put that out there to start with. But
Okay.
that was my first career. I was an aspiring professional golfer, started as a club professional, tried to make it as a touring playing professional. And the short version of the story is when I moved to Florida to try this venture of becoming a tour player, I got myself into some major gambling problems, which led to some obvious financial problems with the IRS in the future, and ultimately it ruined my golf game completely. And I had to give it up because I had the yips, I had the shanks, I was had burned through all my money, and it was time to find a new career, basically. And so that led me out of golf. And then after several failed ventures, after that, I found my way into tax resolution, which I never thought I'd be doing. But here we are, and it's fortunately been the best decision or the best outcome based on everything that's happened. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that background because and we may get into this. You mentioned gambling, and man, I was watching TV the other day, some sports. I don't watch a much of TV. I tell you, there were probably six gambling app advertisements, and I cannot even imagine how many people you might be able to help today or in the future just around that one area. We might dive into that. Um, but let's talk about your book because we just published this book recently. It's called Escaping the Sand Trap. Why'd you name it that? How does that play in with obviously golf, but with what you do, and then we'll unpack and how you help people. So talk about that.
yeah, so really my golf journey is ultimately what really started the trickle down effect of obviously my deteriorating golf game, but then what led me into tax resolution. So the book is about kind of my transition going from my failed golf career to dealing with my own financial struggles and personal struggles, and then ultimately trying to deal with my own issues is how I basically stumbled into the profession of tax
Mhm.
resolution. So the book kind of talks a little bit about my personal story going from the golf to the trials and tribulations, and then ultimately into tax resolution. And then it also covers some success stories that we've had with some real clients, and as well as some tips about how to deal with the IRS if you unfortunately do end up in a situation where you're having to defend yourself against them.
Yeah, well, and it's good because when I look at your book cover, I love it. Escaping the sand trap. I mean, I golfed years ago, not as a professional by any means, but the sand trap was always my worst nemesis, right? Because I never knew how to get out of the dumb thing. And there are strategies and techniques a golfer understands to get out of a sand trap. Just like if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, a sole proprietor, whatever, and you find yourself in trouble with the IRS. And sometimes it's because of decisions you have made. I mean, how dare I say this, intentionally, like gambling and things like that. Other times there are decisions that we make as business owners. I'm choosing not to do my payroll tax this week because I'm going to take those monies and put them over here in advertising because that's going to bring the money. Oh, that didn't work. And we find ourselves getting that letter from the IRS many times. And I think, unfortunately, what I've heard, tell me if this is true, a lot of business owners take that with fear and trepidation and they stick it in the bottom of the pile.
Yes, we've had a lot of letter opening ceremonies in our office where the client will bring in, stack of letters this thick or more that haven't been opened, and we'll rip them open right there in the office. And most of the time months or years from the past. So, responding to them is not going to necessarily do any good directly. But yeah, that is unfortunately, a common thing. Um, it's not because people aren't necessarily wanting to resolve it. It's the fear of the unknown. And, that is a common, absolutely a
Yeah.
common thing.
Well, and I love that you said the fear of the unknown because this really is an emotional issue, right? Yes, money's involved, but it is the emotions of, oh no, the tax man is coming to get me. I got a letter. He's bringing the army, and I mean, I'm not a tax resolution guy, okay? But tell me, is that the truth, or is the IRS just saying, "Hey, we see something that's out of bounds here," kind of like in golf, right? You go out of bounds, there's a penalty. Same thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, obviously, the IRS, they want your money. They don't want your freedom or anything else, ultimately, unless, of course, they have to go to extremes.
Right.
But at the same time, if you procrastinate long enough and don't, try to take the action appropriate to resolve your issue, the IRS does have the power to escalate and obviously, to protect the interests of the government as well as those compliant taxpayers. They will and do take action, obviously, to enforce collection if it gets to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, at the end of the day, it's their money, right? It is owed most of the time. Talk about as a tax resolution specialist. So I don't even think we mentioned this. So you run a company called Cincinnati Tax Resolution. So you're in Cincinnati, Ohio area. You can serve clients across the nation, right? And but let's talk about as a tax resolution specialist, what is it that you do when a client comes to you and says, "Hey, Toph, I'm getting these letters and I owe the IRS. I'm just going to make up a number, right? I owe them $50,000 in back taxes or whatever's." What's the process even look like to work with you? How? Give us an idea.
Yeah, so myself, our company, we are a tax resolution firm. We specialize in helping people who have massive tax problems with the IRS or the state agencies. We are able to represent clients in all 50 states. Most of our clients are in the greater Cincinnati area just because we, promote ourselves heavily in this
Right.
community, but we can service people elsewhere as well. But kind of the process when a client comes in is the first step is that we will have them obviously sign our engagement letter, power of attorney form, so that we can formally begin representing them. Once we kind of take that first step, from that point moving forward, our client does not have to talk to or meet with the IRS at all. So we take over all communications, phone calls, in-person meetings, whatever it takes, where they don't have to appear at all. So, and we highly recommend that they don't. We recommend that they let us handle all those communications, so it gives them a layer of protection.
Right.
Um, just people say things that they don't realize is going to work against them. So,
Right.
just not having to talk to them is a big deal. So, but once we begin representing them, obviously we'll investigate what's going on a little bit deeper to see exactly what amounts we're dealing with, what years. We'll do a deep dive in their financial situation to figure out, what assets do they need protected, what income streams do they have, and ultimately the goal is to figure out how to get them a resolution where they're, of course, paying the IRS's least amount possible, but also something that, is fair and manageable for them so
Yeah.
that the IRS can't come back after them.
Yeah. And that's awesome. So I mean, when you get the letter from the IRS and you realize, oh no, it's dare I say, I'm going to use this word. It's an adversarial relationship. But when somebody works with you, Toph, you come along their side of the table and really protect them, because with that an engagement letter, the IRS is talking with you now, not them, and so they can run their business, have more peace of mind. And then when your client talks with you, it's not an adversarial relationship. It's kind of like an attorney relationship, kind of, right? You go talk with your attorney, they're representing you in court. It's that kind of a concept, right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, our goal is to really mediate between the IRS and our client to obviously come up with an amicable resolution. And as dealing with confrontation or people in general, it doesn't do you any good to
That's right.
come at the IRS aggressively or in a threatening manner. So obviously, our first main objective is to try to be peaceful and propose something that's fair to both parties. Obviously, if there's issues that need to get escalated or the IRS isn't following protocol, we can take those actions and do if needed. But exactly, I mean, the objective is to help both parties reach a fair resolution, and keeping the taxpayer from having to talk to the IRS obviously gives them takes some of that emotion out of the equation in terms of the overall engagement.
Right. And similarly, I've never really thought about this so much that I always heard, right, if you have to go to court, if you're representing yourself, you have a fool for an attorney or whatever. There's a phrase there. You don't go to court representing yourself. You always have an attorney. You don't want to go fight the IRS by yourself because you have like one strategy. Toph has this entire toolbox full of strategies that we don't even know exist, but because you've studied, because you know how to do it, you're able to offer your client and the IRS a multitude of strategies and resolutions that bring them together to go, yep, you know what, that'll work. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. And I always tell people too, when years ago, before I got into this business, I had my own IRS issues that I did deal with on my own without help. And now, 10 plus years later, being in this business, if I had ever had an IRS problem again, I would not represent myself, even now, knowing what I know now, because there's just, there's certain things that you don't want to have to, just the simple things of not having to talk to somebody who is sitting a fake across from you. They're analyzing your body movement, your reaction to certain questions. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, it could be misinterpreted and then, create a bigger issue. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think just
It's
it's invaluable to have representation.
it's really interesting. And I think about I keep going back to golf because I got your book pulled up here and I keep looking at it going, and I don't know if this is a good analogy or not, but I always see those golfers, those professional golfers, Tiger Woods or whoever it is, Mickelson, they always have a caddy who's whispering in their ear, helping them choose the right club. And you look at their golf bag. I mean, these dudes carry, I don't know, 20 different clubs. I don't know. I remember when I was golfing as a kid, I had like three clubs, and that's all I needed. But if I went against you when you were golfing, you would kill me because you had more options for different clubs, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean,
yeah, but it's the ability to choose a wedge versus a 9 iron versus a seven that gets you maybe or a sand wedge, right? To get out of the sand trap. If I didn't have a sand wedge, I'm stuck. I'm digging a deeper hole because I don't know how to get out.
absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think that even now there's still strategies, obviously, and things that I'm learning,
Oh yeah.
ongoing that, um, you know, that, that, every case comes with a different wrinkle. So there's always tips and tricks of the trade that can be applied in different ways based on different circumstances.
Right. And you're part of a larger group, a coaching program and things where you and I first met that they study the law, they understand the tax code, you work with guys like you across the nation, so you guys get together and talk and say, "Oh, we did this." And so when you're stuck when you get that letter from the IRS, what should somebody do when they get the first letter? They may not even know they're in trouble, right? They may be clueless. Like my wife is my bookkeeper, and we have a CPA. I get a monthly report, but if I get a thing from the IRS, I'm going to go. My first call is going to be to my wife, honey. But what should somebody do if they find themselves with that? What walk them through like steps one, two, and three.
Well, I would say that if you are or if you are working with a CPA or an accountant ongoing, probably a good place to start would be to reach out to them just to see if they know anything about what's going on with the notice. They may have prepared the tax return related to the notice in question. So if it's related to that,
Yeah.
they might be able to answer some questions. Obviously, if it's a more threatening issue in terms of collection or audit or something that comes certified, or you haven't filed in many years, and obviously whatever
Yeah.
this letter is, it's probably pretty bad because you haven't been filing. Then I would absolutely reach out to try to find representation
Yeah.
immediately. If not, just get get an opinion from someone else, because the last thing you really want to do, and unfortunately we deal with a lot of clients who do this, is, they're reaching out to the IRS first in response to that notice, if they open the letter, of course.
Right.
And in that conversation with the IRS, they're innocently enough trying to potentially amicably resolve the issue, but the person on the other end from the IRS is, asking questions. Where do you have bank accounts? What assets do you have? What income streams do you have? And, they're taking all these notes down, which they could use against you later, depending on how you answer these questions. So I think it's just important not to, obviously I'm biased,
Yeah.
but to,
Well,
to seek professional,
yeah.
representation.
Yeah, I'm biased too, by the way. I think people need to pick up the phone and call Toph, Sheldon, or go to, I love your website. It's 513tax.com. I assume 513 is the area code for the Cincinnati area. Is that right?
It is, yes.
Yeah. But if you Google Cincinnati tax resolution or Toph Sheldon, you're going to find him. But that's really, folks, your first line of defense, because you're getting ready to step into, and I don't say this with malice, but you're stepping into a viper's den. You're stepping into something you know nothing about. And I don't think the IRS has to read you your Miranda rights, but everything you say can be held against you, right? And what Toph does is he understands this. He's that shield of protection. And if I'm right, and correct me if I'm wrong, when they engage with you as a client, you put up that wall of protection, then the IRS can't call them, can't send them letters. Everything now comes through you. So you're this big, I always think of Star Wars, one of the Star Wars movies when they had the destroyers that had that bubble around them. Um, you're protected by Toph. Is that fair, what I just said?
Absolutely. Yeah. Once,
Okay.
like I said earlier, once you're a client of ours, you don't have to talk to or meet with the IRS at all,
Yeah.
regardless of the circumstances, assuming it's a civil tax issue, which those are
Right.
the only cases that we
Right.
work. So, yes.
Yeah. And so what it's going to bring is first of all, I think peace, because it's going to reduce a ton of anxiety. You're going to be able to focus on your business, your family. It's going to bring hope, because I think the fears hit us automatically, and we go, "Oh no, they're going to take all my money. They're going to take my house. They're going to take my car. They're going to take my kids. They're going to take." Odds are they're not, but you don't know. You need to work with Toph, because he's going to give you peace. He's going to give you hope. He's going to give you a plan, and you're going to walk with someone. Is there any way to ballpark? I mean, working something out with the IRS, is that a 1 month issue, a 12-month issue, a 6 year? I mean, how is there any way to even know?
No, I mean, every case is definitely different. Some obviously, in general, the IRS is not particularly efficient as any government agency, but some cases can get resolved within a couple months.
Okay.
But ironically, yesterday I just got a letter in the mail for a client who we've been working on an offer and compromise settlement, and it was over 4 years in the process, and they finally just got their acceptance letter yesterday of a
Wow.
$700,000+ debt getting settled for 66,000. So it was a painful wait, but obviously well worth it in the long run to have that peace of mind and having it permanently resolved. So
Absolutely. That's a huge ROI, man. That's like a tenth.
it
And
was uh, it was an amazing case.
it is. Well, and that's awesome. And everything is done, I love, legally, above the board. You're working in conjunction with the IRS. They agreed all this. And so you're not pulling some hat trick or some kind of mojo magic. This is all because of strategies you understand and the way that you work, because of you're an expert at tax resolution. And so I love what you do. I love that industry. And it was, I mean, I've only been around you in that industry for about 6 years. I didn't even know you guys existed. Fortunately, because I never need you, right? But I want people to understand there are people like you who can stand between the IRS and yourself to say, I'm here to fight for you, fight with you, and to resolve this in an amicably pleasing way as best as we can. And I'm going to guide you down. I'm going to give you peace of mind. I'm going to give you protection. I'm going to give you a plan. And we're just going to walk this thing out. That's got to bring so much relief to your clients. I would love to know the reaction of your client when you give them that news, right? To go, wow, they have to talk about another celebration party, right?
Well, it's when those kinds of letters come in, those are always they make my day because I always look forward to making that call to the client to let them know. So I haven't actually I got the letter yesterday. I didn't have time to call him yesterday, so but I'm sure it's just going to be like the weight of the world off his shoulders when he gets the news because I mean this is kind of extreme that it took 4 years to go through this process, but it was a complicated case, and I it's nobody's fault that it took this long, but he'll be ecstatic to say the least. And
Absolutely.
more probably, the financial savings, of course, is significant, but I would say probably the relief of just having this done is going to outweigh even the financial savings at this point. And that's the case probably with most of our clients, realistically. So,
Yeah, I bet you're right. I can't wait to hear of the relief in his voice when you bring him this good news. So, um, Toph, thank you for what you do. Thank you for sharing with us the background, the story, how you help people. Thanks for creating your book, Escaping the Sand Trap. I'm going to have a link in the show notes so people can get a copy of that because it's just a great book. It's well written. You did a great job of telling stories and it's engaging. I personally think everybody needs to be reading this book because I may never need it personally, but I'm going to run across people who need it, and I need to be able to hand them a resource and say, Toph's a great guy. Read his book, and he can help you get out of this. Because the more educated I am, the more of a resource I can be to my friends. And you've written a tremendous book on escaping the sand trap, how to get out of um, debt to the IRS legally and ethically when you're working with somebody like Toph Sheldon. So, seriously, thank you for writing it. Thanks for doing what you do, and thanks for being my guest today on Expert Speak.
well, Michael, thank you for having me, and thank you and your team for helping for all you did to help put the book, make the book happen. It wouldn't have been possible without you and your team, and couldn't be more
Man,
appreciative. So, thank you.
you're welcome, brother. It was
All
a
right.
joy working with you, and thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for listening to Expert Speak. I appreciate that. Tune in again next week for another great episode. Take care. God bless.